Ching ching. Hello everyone! In this video I'll be reacting to one of the early uploads from the YouTube channel The Game Theorists. This video came out in 2014, so I think it's around 7 years ago. I hope that you enjoy this video because I'm a huge fan of their work! Let's start!
Today we're finally taking on the most iconic item from the Legend of Zelda franchise. No, not the Triforce. Okay, yeah, you could say the Master Sword is pretty iconic too. Sure, that was a biggie, but it was only for one game. It's the Hookshot, alright, we're talking about the Now look, the intro card's already up. I've missed the chance to say that here. Hello, Internet. Welcome to Game Theory.
Hello!
Intro, Hookshot, let's move on. The Hookshot, one of the many iconic items from the Zelda franchise, and my personal favorite, was first introduced in Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, and a variation has appeared in nearly every game since. Whether you're fond of the original Hookshot, the long shot, the switch hook, or the claw shot, at its core, the item always functions with the same basic mechanics. You got your hook arrow thing, that's the technical term, and you shoot it. The hook lodges in place and the whole thing recoils, with Link getting pulled by the chain to his new destination. It's so satisfying. Some incarnations even have a nifty little laser pointer built in. Gotta love that super consistent medieval Hyrulean technology, right? I'm looking at you, Skyward Sword robots.
Medieval technology. In which you can do something like that. Oh my god, I'm terrible at it.
In the game, the Hookshot usually makes an appearance beginning in the underwater temple and serves double duty as your primary weapon by stunning or killing enemies at close range. But should the Hookshot actually be a weapon in Link's arsenal? What is the real cost of all that powerful hooking and shooting? And the biggest question, is Link's most iconic weapon, second most iconic weapon, actually more dangerous to Link than the enemies he faces in the game? To answer that, we'll need to use some math, so whip out your trusty TI-83s, type in the number 5318008, and laugh, because when you flip it upside down it says boobies. High school humor for the win. No, but seriously,
Not bad. Naughty ah.
put that outdated thing away. How has technology advanced so much and yet these things are still the same? Anyway, before we get to the numbers, we need to decide which shot weapon we're going to use. Because I'm clearly compensating for something, let's go with the most powerful of Link's hookshot weapons, the long shot from Ocarina of Time. According to the game's canon, the long shot launches twice the distance of the hookshot, meaning that it's going to require a greater launch force to travel farther. And if we're gonna test this thing out to the fullest, I say bigger is definitely better. Today we're looking at two basic forces. The first force is when he launches the
Yep. With a huge launch force, sometimes bigger is better.
hookshot, and the second force is when the hookshot latches in place and pulls him to his new destination. So with that being said, the first thing we want to find out is the force that's being exerted on Link when the long shot is fired. We can get to that force by using a few of our favorite Newtons. Not the figgy kind. Newton's third law of motion that states for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. Basically, this means that if we know how much force is being launched away from Link, we'll know how much force is going back towards him and being pushed through his arm. To get to that force, we'll need to take a step back in Newton's book to his second law. Force equals mass times acceleration, or as I like to remember it, FMA. That's not memorable at all, but it's just fun to say.
Full Metal Alchemists! he will do a reference to that a couple episodes later. A couple hundreds episodes later.
Ma. Since we're looking for F, we'll need to fill in Ma with in-game information. For mass, we'll need the mass of the stuff that's getting shot, which is the hook and the chain. To do that, we need to take a visit to everyone's favorite, the DMV. Density equals mass divided by volume. We're solving for mass, so it's D times V equals M. So let's start filling in numbers. Its density depends on what it's actually made of. Try as I might using the power of Google, I wasn't able to find a credible source naming the Longshot's material. But according to the game, we know it has to be a metal or alloy that's hard enough to pierce any wood surface. Here's our list of candidates. We know for sure that iron exists in the Zelda universe because we see it present in the iron boots, but we also know that it weighs Link down like a little girly man when he's wearing them, and because he carries the Longshot around without any problem, it seems like iron isn't going to be our mystery metal. Aluminum and other lighter metals don't really have the hardness needed to be used over and over again to attach to wood surfaces without denting or flattening over time. So cross those things off the list. And finally, since it has to be
Because those soft metals, after a couple of times, it will start to deform.
used underwater, it can't be any metal that rusts or changes color after getting wet. The one metal that really fits the bill here is steel. That is some sweet metal, man. Metal Man, he's a boss from Mega Man. For all you youngsters, Mega Man's that guy that everyone got excited about who's in the new Smash Brothers. Yeah, you wouldn't have any reason to know him. Then I was able to calculate the volume of the hook using pixel measurements, which I won't go into here because this video is already going to be long, and calculating mathematical volumes isn't the most thrilling YouTube content I could think of. Suffice it to say, I was able to estimate that the volume of the hook is 0.0012 cubic meters or 73 cubic inches. It's a pretty small volume, but it's more than made up for when we multiply it by the density of steel, which is a whopping 8,050 kilograms per cubic meter. This gives us a hook with a mass of 9.5 kilograms or a weight around 21 pounds for us Americans. So, okay, that seems reasonable, 20 pounds, but remember, that's just for the hook. We also have to add the weight of the chain. We'll assume that this is also steel since it has the same in-game color and texture, but how long is it? So I went to the water temple and found a room where I was able to get the Longshot to its longest possible extension. From there, I was able to estimate its length. Using the height of adult Link, which we've calculated before in multiple ways using our Majora's Mask video, to be about 5 feet, we can figure out the height and length of the room based on the regular pattern of wall decorations around him. Blah 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 pixel measurements, blah 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 lame math joke and or pun. It ends up being that the Longshot's max extension is about 65 feet or 20 meters. So that's Longshot's length, but we need its mass. Steel manufacturers publish the weight of their steel chains based on the link diameter. Not Link's diameter, the link diameter.
Link diameter, get it? The link diameter? Get it? Link?
The chain links. Though it would be cool to go into Home Depot and get some spools of green-clad elfmen. Anyway, more screenshots and pixel measurements show that the chain link diameter is about ½ an inch, which would put our 65-foot chain at a surprisingly hefty 169 pounds of weight. That's the weight of a baby horse, or me after 2 straight weeks of Sizzler buffets. And here's Link just beasting this thing around with one arm. Huh, I was wrong about the whole girly man joke. Good for you, elf boy. But okay, let's say that Link somehow manages to pick up all 189 pounds or 86 kilograms
with one hand.
worth a Longshot, which is in and of itself a long shot. What does this mean for the force of actually firing it? Well, going back to the equation, we still need acceleration, a variable we just unlocked by finding out the Longshot's length. The Longshot travels 20 meters in 1 second, meaning its velocity is 20 meters per second.
Shockingly difficult math.
And its speed is consistent throughout, meaning the only time it's accelerating is from that initial 0 standstill to the 20 meters per second in that fraction of an instant right there, just as you pull the trigger. Roughly that instant is about 1/10 of a second. And since acceleration is change in velocity over time, that means A equals 20 over 0.1 or 200 meters per second squared. That's a lot. It's not quite bullet level acceleration, but it is 10 times faster than the roller coaster with the fastest acceleration in the world, Dodonpa in Japan. Okay, so we're finally ready to calculate the force that the Longshot exerts on Link Link from firing it. F equals ma, plug in some numbers, and that gets us 17,200 newtons. So what's that mean? Well, considering that Link remains completely still while launching the long shot, it means he's absorbing all of that backward force into his arm. The force needed to break a bone varies based on the size of the bone, how the force was delivered, etc., but is typically around 12,000 newtons. So, based on the force applied to Link's hand by the long shot, just the act of launching this device would, at minimum, break his fingers and his wrist, potentially some of his arm. After an injury like that, there is no way he would be able to hold on to the long shot's handle, let alone ride it across an open pit of hungry Tektites with one arm. No amount of red potion is gonna fix that in a second. You hear those hearts beeping, Link? Yeah, we'll get used to it because a shattered arm is gonna do that to you. But wait, we're not even done yet. That's just the force to launch the darn thing. It's not like Link is taking a leisurely glide over to the hook. Oh no. The long shot immediately begins recoiling its chain as soon as the hook is landed, violently jerking Link towards the other side of the room.
So it's like a...
To calculate that force, we can actually use the same equation, but now Link's mass is the thing that's doing the accelerating. We've already mentioned that Link is 5 feet tall, and we'll be generous and say he's a medium build. For a guy in this range, his average weight would be around 135 pounds or 61 kilograms. So wait, let's stop for a second to point out that the long shot is actually heavier than Link. How is this guy possibly keeping this massive thing in his pants? I'm just gonna let that one sit there for a second. In gameplay footage, we can see that it takes this...
Oh, this is just game logic, you know. Why think about it when game logic can work?
same amount of time to launch the long shot as it takes for Link to be pulled back to it, meaning that the distance traveled and total acceleration would be very similar to the calculations before. Plugging these into our equation, we get FMA being 12,200 newtons. Again, all this force is being handled by Link's arm, broken hand, and area right around his shoulder as he gets dragged into the air. 12,200 newtons is definitely enough to break a bone. I mean, even more than the ones he's already lost, and is easily enough to rip his shoulder out of socket. But that bears the question, with such an extreme amount of acceleration, would it actually be enough to rip his arm cleanly off his body? Surprisingly, we can look that up. Figures and statistics actually exist on how much force you literally need to rip someone limb from limb, because the internet is a dark, dark place sometimes.
History can be dark sometimes.
Take, for instance, the people who've been reported to lose limbs after getting them stuck in a clothes dryer. Seriously, dude, just let the quarter in the lint trap go. It's not worth it, bro. Not worth it. From what I can tell, it takes about 30,000 newtons to rip the arm off, but this also utilizes the torque of the dryer. In most cases, the force needed to physically rip off an arm is greater than the force applied to Link by the Hookshot. So okay, he's made it to the other side with a shattered hand, some other broken bones, and his arm hanging out of socket, but hey, it's still attached to his body. He can go limp on to collect another small key. Victory across the board, right? Wrong. Even though the force exerted on Link isn't enough to take his arm off, there's another phenomenon we need to account for in this situation. Link is being pulled to his destination in an incredibly short amount of time. Like we said, his acceleration is about 200 meters per second. And accelerating that fast is technically okay if you're a solid piece of metal like the long shot. But if you're a person, the human body isn't a solid mass, which means that even if you pull one part of us, technically all the other parts might not be able to keep up. In particular, your inner organs are going to be a lot slower to get moving than the solid parts like bone and cartilage. And that means while the rest of you is taking off to fight Ganondorf, those soft internal organs are still going to be sloshing around there for a second. Accelerating Link like this is the equivalent of accelerating him to 45 miles per hour in a fraction of a second. A rate that would put his organs under a staggering force of 20 Gs. 20 times the force of gravity humanity here on Earth. That is a massive number. But to truly understand the damage that could cause, we need to take into account a few things. First, Link is feeling this for less than a second. His body position also makes a tremendous amount of difference. G-forces are a lot easier to tolerate when they're felt perpendicular to the spine, like when you're sitting down in a car but you're moving forward. They're hardest to tolerate when they're parallel to the spine, like when a person is facing down and moving forward. In other words,
like a Superman pose. Da, 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 da. And Link is not Superman. Just saying.
the position Link would be in as he's being reeled to the hookshot. This position is particularly dangerous because the tiny blood vessels in your head and the retinas of your eyes are more easily damaged in this direction. It's estimated that when trained, humans can endure this level of G-forces for about 10 seconds before they die. In actual experiments done with humans in the range of 20 Gs by NASA and other international space agencies, 1 second of exposure permanently damaged the subject's spines. But even worse, because of that whole blood vessel thing in the eyes, made them permanently or semi-permanently blind. Which means that in one use of the long shot, Link breaks all the bones in his hand upon pulling the trigger, then undergoes complete dislocation of his shoulder and probably a couple other random broken bones as he's torn from his standing position before he's finally given a 20G slap to the face due to acceleration, pulling apart his vertebra and damaging his retinas for life. And you thought the water temple was bad before. But hey, that's just a theory.
I'm not sure if you understand this reference because Link always destroy the pots. Always destroy the pots. When we play the character Link, the treasures, the things that we want to find are mostly found in the pots, and we destroy the pots to find it. And the picture is like, oh my god, there's so much pot to destroy. And then the face will be like,
A game theory. Thanks for watching. So here's a fun fact. I live just outside of Los Angeles, and traffic here is bad. I mean, really bad. Every day that I drive into town, it literally takes me an hour and 15 minutes at least to get into the city. And that's only one way. And believe me, you can only listen to Wrecking Ball so many times before it makes you nauseous. And that number of times is 1. So to keep me occupied during the commute, I listen to audiobooks from audible.com. Now I know you've seen a bunch of other YouTubers promote Audible, but seriously, I use this service practically every day to get through this ungodly commute. And it's great because it helps me stay awake, it makes me feel like I'm learning, and it helps me get ideas for game theory. So take it from me, it really is a great service. It's like reading, but better. Currently, I'm listening to Bill Nye's book, Undeniable: Evolution and the Science of Creation, because it's by Bill Nye the Science Guy. Why wouldn't I listen to it? What's not to love? And what's not to love about a 30-day free trial and a free audiobook just by clicking the link in the description or typing in audible.com/MattPat. Type it in, download your first book, and let the learning begin. They have over 150,000 books covering everything you could possibly care about. Science, math, history, video games. I'm sure there's some other stuff in there too, but seriously, what else would you care about other than science, math, history, and video games? So anyway, hop on over to audible.com/MattPat, give it a trial run, and let me know if you find a good book. I'm always looking for more fodder for the commute. And as always, thank you for supporting the show by supporting the advertisers at the end of these videos. It really does help us keep this little business running, so that way I can keep finding new and awful, miserable ways to torture our favorite video game characters.
no! You should have said that. Come on. Come on, that's... thank you so much for watching this video. If you do like this video, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to my channel. Thank you so much. And comment down below if you have anything to share with us. Thank you. The video that I just reacted to was a YouTube video from the video from a YouTube channel, The Game Terrorists. They are amazing, and their videos are just very educational. And I hope that you enjoy as well. I'm a huge fan of their work. And as always, that's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching.